Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
And welcome back to another episode of Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. Hi, I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean, and this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Please check us out online on our Facebook page and Instagram at Couple Synergy or our website, couplesynergy.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couple Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experience helping thousands of couples transform their relationships for over 20 years.
You know, everyone says you should work on your relationship, but nobody teaches us how. So we've created this podcast to teach people what they can do to create the relationship they've always dreamed of.
With the partner they fell in love with. On today's episode, we are talking about rejection.
Rejection and the opposite of rejection, which is inclusion, right?
Yes, yes. But before we go into that, I'd like to read off a review that we have.
Cool.
And so this review comes to us from AP Chicago 7, and they say, valuable for couples. A great podcast to listen to with your partner and discuss. I appreciate all the couples interviewed and their willingness to be open to sharing their stories publicly. Dr. Ray and Jean are great to work with as well, and I cannot recommend listening to this podcast enough.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, we just heard that from a couple we've been working with for a bit, and they're re-listening to our stuff. And they said each time they listen, they hear something from a different place, and they're getting the concepts at an even deeper level, which is really cool.
Which is how it is, anytime you're trying to learn something, if you go back over what you learned, you're going to learn kind of a new perspective on it. So, yes, I mean, this is a great review, and it really kind of showcases what we're trying to do and bring this information to all of you out there, our listeners.
So let's talk about rejection.
Yeah, let's talk about rejection. It's really, really painful.
Both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
They know now that when human beings experience emotional pain, it lights up the same area in the brain that processes physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And in fact, that specific area is called the dorsal anterior cingulate cortex. That's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Sounds like a fish.
But it is very interesting, right? That
Yeah.
physical pain is going to light up the same area of the brain that emotional rejection or being ostracized. I can't ever say that word. Ostracized. Anyway, it lights up the same area of the brain. So that physical pain and emotional pain is very similar. In fact, some of the studies actually have shown that if you take Tylenol, right, acetaminophen, that it can actually make that emotional rejection pain a lot less.
Yeah. It's all connected to our need to bond and to belong and to be a part of something. And, over the weekend, we were able to spend it with my family, and our son and daughter-in-law were there with their puppy, their little guy. And we had to watch him for a couple hours, and he sat on my lap the entire time. And every time we see him, he knows who we are, and he runs to us. And, dogs are awesome with this because they have the same need, that need to belong. And it actually is a life-threatening psychological process when we're rejected.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about back in the days of being in a tribe and, clinging together for survival, if you were shunned by the community, shunned by the group, that is life or death.
Yeah. And there's also, unfortunately enough, cases where children who have been neglected or rejected, their brains don't develop properly, and it can impact them lifelong. Some of the things that happen when we get rejected are we lose our sense of control. just like we do when we're in any kind of pain, where we cry out or yell or make a fool of ourselves, in some way. And that actually increases the rejection even more, because then people think that you're like the wet blanket or the Debbie Downer, and they want you to stay away. And the more you try to connect to them, it also generates that need of connection. So the more rejected you are, the more painful and sensitive you are to trying to get connected to other people.
I think from a sociological perspective, rejection and being ostracized by the group, being ostracized by the group, it served a function. It served a function of rules and boundaries. And when you violated the boundaries of the group, then you were naturally rejected. And that was a very painful thing. And so it really kept people in line with what the group's values were. I think now it has evolved into more of a weapon.
Yeah.
And can. I shouldn't say has, globally, but it can evolve into a weapon especially in a couple's relationship. And if you are starting to use rejection as a way to manipulate or control your partner, then that's a very painful way of getting your needs met.
Especially if you're allowing someone else to meet those needs. It might be a mother or a sister or brother or a friend or a coworker, and they're in that position that should be a part of your relationship. Ultimately, if you want to have the greatest relationship possible, your partner should be included in all areas of your life.
Yes. And that may sound kind of extreme for some people out there.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I want my partner to be in every aspect of my life? Well, it's a choice, and with every choice comes consequences, both good and bad. I'm not saying that couples out there who live separate lives, can't have a relationship that works. It absolutely can work. Now, the level and the quality of relationship that you want, now that is a matter of how much you are being inclusive with your partner in your life.
It seems like we have this natural need. Like, again, we were just hanging out with my family, and this is the extended family. And you see someone that you maybe haven't seen all year, because this is kind of the only time we'll see these people. And you have this need to ask them, what's new? What's going on? Tell me about yourself. Tell me about your life. Bring me in. I want to know.
Share about your life.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you want to share back, hey, well, we've been doing this or that. And that makes us bond and connect.
Right.
And that is an important thing to do, especially if we lived in a tribe where we were dependent on each other. We would need to know, hey, did you find some, strawberries today? Or what was the weather like or something? Have you been to this area? What should I know? And that was a way to exchange information. And we don't need it for survival so much anymore. But it's still that drive. And we have that want and need.
We need it for deep connection in our relationships. Yeah. And if you are sharing and wanting to know more about, a family member or a friend, and they are sharing back, it really makes a difference on whether you're accepting them, accepting this information that they're sharing with you, and in a positive way. And that's being reciprocated, because if you are being rejected or judged based on what you're sharing, that's not going to drive deep connection. It's actually going to repel you. You are now going to want to defend yourself or guard yourself from that person, not want to spend time with them.
I really hate the feeling, too, of when I learn something, and this hasn't happened in a very long time, and maybe even not so much with you, but other people that I may have dated, where I learned something about them from someone else in front of other people.
Yeah,
You know
something
what I
you
mean?
didn't know, and they haven't shared that with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But they shared it with other people,
right.
and you're supposed to be their person.
Yeah.
And that feels really terrible. And it's actually quite a jolting shock to me anyways. That's an important thing to me. And I think especially if you grew up in a situation where maybe you were isolated, ostracized, or a little bit lonely, or the research shows that you are more sensitive to those social cues, and you feel that deeper because you know that's something that you have to sort of fill in for the parts that you missed out on so that you can be mentally healthier. It's very healthy for us to socialize. When we get stuck in our heads, that's a really dangerous place to be. And when we get out and talk to other people or listen to podcasts like this one, which is why we created it, is to let people know we're all not so different. And it's a very obvious thing if you're working with or talking to someone who feels a lot of rejection, that they are really sensitive and misread rejection all the time. And so maybe a couple of friends got together on accident, like they met at the mall and just went for coffee. They just bumped into each other and like, oh, I wasn't included. They don't like me. And they'll read into that more than someone who has, a better self-worth, sense of self-esteem.
Well, I think we need to then define the different forms of rejection that could occur in relationships. I mean, what you're talking about here is an indirect, form of rejection that's not even intentional, right? Versus what I had mentioned earlier, and that was very intentional rejection used to manipulate, a person that you have a relationship with. And so, there can be very direct ways. It can be very indirect ways. It could be emotional rejection. It could be physical rejection. If your partner's rejecting your affection, for example, right? And now we're going to talk about, we can talk about the different intentions behind that. Maybe your partner has a history of trauma. And so physical affection is going to bring up some of those old trauma wounds. Or they are feeling that distance, from you in the relationship and wanting to guard themselves emotionally. And they don't want to open up and become close because maybe there isn't emotional safety in the relationship. So there are a lot of different forms and ways that rejection can show up in a relationship.
And, if you have this need to connect that's stronger than your partner's and you're pursuing them all the time, they're naturally going to start to distance. And so,
because it might feel too needy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, like overwhelming and draining. And so these are really important things to talk about with your partner. If, how do you feel about the amount of time you guys spend together, the amount of information you share with each other, what touch feels like, especially affectionate touch? And is it welcoming? Is it bothersome? All those kind of things.
I think a good rule of thumb is that rejection begets rejection. And that if you're being rejected by your partner, feel that, whether you're misinterpreting it or not, if you're feeling it, it is an issue for the relationship to figure out. And so if you feel it, you're going to guard yourself. You are going to dial back the amount that you are sharing, the amount that you are connecting with your partner. So now that creates more of a distance. And now the possibility of rejecting them in return is going to increase.
And if you use connection in order to ostracize someone else and reject them, so, you might have 3 friends that hang out together and 2 start to gravitate more towards each other and push the 3rd one out, then that is going to be a situation that is manipulative all the way around. So that's a really terrible way to use rejection in order to bond to another person.
Right.
Like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what we're talking about is being inclusive. First of all, of course, with your partner, in the place of the sanctum that we talk about creating in our home study course, of that place where it's reserved for you and your person, and then to interact as a couple out into the world and bring your partner into those different aspects of your life. And that will increase your connection, and will also increase your health in the world of, it's like Cheers. You want to go where everyone knows your name. That's a great feeling.
It's a very old show. But yes, it is. It's a very nice feeling. And that's what you want to feel in your relationship, that if you shared who you are and you shared your opinions and your thoughts and your perspective on life, that it is not going to be shut down by your partner, that it's not going to be rejected, and said that it's stupid, right, or ridiculous. And that inclusivity is something that you are only in control of giving. You can't make your partner do that.
If there's something going on in your relationship that you're not really talking about, and you should be, and then you go out in public and you start sharing that in a room full of people and cutting your partner down and kind of taking digs to try to get people on your side, that is a really painful public
rejection.
form of rejection.
Right. Yeah. You're humiliating your partner in front of everyone.
Yeah.
When really, if you're doing that, you're actually humiliating yourself.
Right, because everyone's looking at you like, button it up.
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you talk about your spouse that way?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is, unfortunately, I think that couples struggle with this a lot more than they know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And it happens in many different ways, many subtle ways. And if it's left unchecked, if it's left unattended to, it just grows over time. And then resentment grows along with it. And then couples are just keeping everything to themselves and living those parallel lives that we've talked about in past podcasts about.
Or they'll share at one level, but not really at a deep level. That they'll compartmentalize their lives and, go to their friends for their emotional support and, do the logistical thing with their partner or something like that. So if you get the opportunity in life to say yes to being inclusive, it will increase your immune system. It'll make you stronger. It'll make you healthier. It will reduce anxiety and depression. And sometimes it takes a little bit of energy to make yourself available and to give. So this is that giver's gain kind of
concept.
Yeah. That you can't possibly show up for other people without it benefiting you. Right. So say yes to the birthday party you get invited to, or show up to the family parties, and find healthy ways to do that if it's appropriate. And if you are in a situation where a family is inappropriate, find other people, find a new way, create something new in order to feel that. We've been doing that like bowling league for how long? 4 years or something?
Has it been that long?
Yeah. And, we all just are committed to once a month for 6 months out of the year of bowling together. And it's nice. You feel like a connection in a really safe, superficial way that you just get together and laugh and nothing matters. Except for your handicap. That's serious.
Yeah, yours is much more serious than mine as far as your handicap. But it's all in good fun.
Yeah.
Right? And, specifically when we're talking about that feeling of rejection in your relationship, in your primary committed relationship, and that concept of being inclusionary. We have podcasted couples in the past. I don't remember which couple, but one of them had said that, my partner is my greatest cheerleader. My partner just supports me and says yes, and let's do it. Let's find out a way to keep on. Let's find a way to do it, right? And that is a great feeling when you are giving that when you're receiving it, first of all, but when you're giving it to your partner, what you're doing is you are being inclusionary. You are creating this environment of unity in your relationship where the two of you are never going to feel rejected by each other. You can have a difference of opinions. You can even argue about things. But when it comes to that feeling of being rejected, that is not going to be part of those arguments. It's not going to be part of differences of opinion.
I think that's Aaron and Manya. And I'm remembering that because we knew Aaron before in his previous relationship, and he talked a lot about feeling a lot of isolation and rejection his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And, Manya came into his life and just absolutely accepts him. And he talked about how wonderful that feels. And by the way, Aaron and Manya are hilarious. Listen to their episode. It's way in the beginning, probably one of the first 10 that we put out. That's a good one, a very funny one. But being rejected in life it's something that we will carry until we heal. And the person who can heal it with you the best is going to be your partner.
And it cuts really deep, really, really deep. And because it's one of those innate feelings that all of us have as human beings. And, as we mentioned earlier, it was part of societal, change and societal limitations and restrictions. And so it was a way of keeping an entire community safe. But in our primary relationship, when it is allowed to be used as a weapon or allowed to be used as a manipulative tool, that is where it can be so, so painful. And, we have said it before in past podcasts that our primary relationship, the primary committed relationship that we have, it is the greatest source of joy, happiness, and it can also be the greatest source of pain in our lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the ultimate feeling is shame, because shame literally means you don't belong. You're not included. You're not accepted here. And that is an extremely low frequency vibration and painful thing to experience. And it's so sad because mostly it's really not necessary. And unfortunately, we see it way too often in many families where there's a person that nobody will talk to, and everyone just sort of lets all that sit there, and there's not a lot you can do about it sometimes, but it is a really painful way to be in life.
Yeah, and that's very unfortunate when it comes to a family relationship and someone feeling that rejection from their family. And as Jean said, sometimes there is very little you can do, if that has become part of the family culture, to do that, other than isolate yourself from your family and create another one, that is going to be more inclusive and more accepting of you. But even that is a very painful thing to do and to go through.
Right. To find your tribe. Your unblood-related tribe.
Right.
Yeah. So it's good for you, and it's good for the people that you bring into your life that you are inclusive with appropriately. And it's really, really important for you and your partner. And there may be things that are going on in your relationship that you're not even aware of, that it hurts your partner. And it might be really casual, and it might just be like, me and my friend are going to go do this thing. And you didn't consider your partner, you didn't consider including them, or even, letting them be kind of part of the process of knowing that, respecting them, of saying, hey, let me check that out with my partner and make sure I'm available and, it works. And those are little slights that the other person probably won't share, because when we feel shame, we don't want to share it. And we'll just sort of take it. And this is a really important topic to have a good conversation with your partner.
So we want to thank you so much for joining us today and for listening to Couples Synergy on the topic of rejection. Our passion is in helping couples and people have happy and healthy relationships, and this podcast gives us a fun way of bringing our knowledge and expertise to you, our listeners. For all of you listening, please subscribe to our podcast and please leave us a review. If you have any questions, comments, or topic suggestions, please email us at contact@couplesynergy.com. For more information about Couple Synergy and our programs such as Relationship 101, which is our home study course, the Couples Weekend Intensive, which is coming up in September 9th through 12th, our online membership called Connections, and our premier coaching program called Couple to Couple. Look us up online at couplesynergy.com.
And if you're listening to this podcast, what's the date? Monday, July 19th. We will be doing Facebook Live on Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Central Time. And we have an online Facebook group called Couple Synergy Community that if you follow us on that, you can get up-to-date stuff and even interact with us there. And if you know someone who could benefit from this episode, please download it and share it. And thank you for listening.
Until next time, synergize your life and synergize your love.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.